Podcasting for brands. IamTheHow.com.
Broadcasting live Totnes and Dartington.
Right, I think we're here. I think we're live. Gosh, that was live at 5 on the button right now. So Sound Out Radio 102.5 FM and online. I'm Dave Clark. I am the How, and today I'm joined by Amanda from Less Plastic. Hi, Amanda.
Hello, Dave.
How are you doing?
Really good, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Pleasure. So we've got a few road closures in and around Totnes, but you've come in from Kingsbridge, is that right?
Yes.
So what's it like in Kingsbridge? What have you been up to?
Kingsbridge is fine. It's been a bit rainy today, but I've been head stuck into some website amends and just sort of planning a few campaigns and things that are upcoming. So yeah, keeping busy and out of trouble.
Brilliant. Well, we can talk about all of those.
Yes,
of course. So just so we know where we are in the nutshell world. What does Less Plastic? I mean, the name says a lot, but tell us in a nutshell what you do.
Yes, so Less Plastic is a Devon-based non-profit, and in a nutshell, we inspire people to reduce plastic waste, making positive changes in their lifestyles or in their businesses.
Wow. So, I mean, there's lots to talk about there, and we will do exactly that. We'll come back to that. So, but before we do, tell us, not how that all started, but just tell us a little bit about yourself, the background, the story, where you were born, the kind of places that you've worked, and how that's led to the world of Less Plastic.
Yeah. Well, I mean, when I was a baby, my parents emigrated to Canada, and I do wonder whether that is kind of the background for me in having an environmental passion, because my memories of Canada, I mean, I lived there till I was about 7. So the sort of early years of my childhood were there. And, my memories are very much of beautiful outdoors, big lakes, big mountains. We were... most of the time we were in Toronto, but the last year we went to Calgary. So looking out my window, I saw the Rocky Mountains every morning, and we did camping trips in the Rockies. So I guess I had that connection with nature and the outdoors. And I remember being a bit gutted when my parents told me we were coming back to England.
Right.
But, actually, I love this country as well. And I think, so... My sort of career, at university, I did languages, and I think that's probably also linked to being in Canada because I did, there was bilingual schooling there, French, Canadian, which I kind of forgot a lot of my French for a few years when I came back to this country, but still had the real kind of passion for sort of communicating and particularly for French. So I went to university, did French, Spanish and politics, ended up having some time, like a year abroad, which was really great fun in Lyon, and then in a small city in the south of Spain called Jaén, which was, really an amazing year. So sort of came back, finished uni, and didn't really know what I wanted my career to be because I'd always just sort of followed what I was interested in. So at that point I was interested in the languages and the travelling. And for, I was at uni in Newcastle, but at the time, this is kind of like mid-90s, there wasn't very many jobs up there. So I went to London, as most of my contemporaries did at the time, had a career in marketing for a few years, which kind of was was quite a logical step because it's, again, communication and ideas. And I guess in a way I didn't really need any particular qualification to get into marketing, but as you get better at it, it's actually quite interesting because you're looking at how to persuade people to change their behaviour, which then kind of links back to environmentalism.
Yeah, absolutely, very much so.
Yeah. So, my early career and where I met my husband actually was at GE Capital, so it's not at all environmental if you look at it in that sense that it's sort of banking and finance and but it was a really useful experience in terms of learning
Sure.
business skills and team working and things like that. And then I moved into retail, went to work for a fashion retailer called Oasis, and then had a career break to have my children, two boys, who are now aged 15 and 13. So during that time, when I was at home with them, I also did some French and Spanish teaching for nursery and primary age children, just to kind of keep my brain active. And then when my youngest started school, I went back into marketing and worked for an entrepreneur in helping him with his events for sales leaders. And so that was very much going into London and running events and meeting some really inspirational speakers actually who were sharing best practice for improving performance. And there were some big name brands that were members of that organisation. So that was quite a nice kind of step back into work. And then it was really around the time reaching 40 that we decided as a family that it would be quite nice to move to the seaside.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we decided to move down to Devon, and I set up a marketing consultancy for small businesses because I wanted to help small businesses improve their marketing. And then at the same time, I started noticing plastic on the beaches in Devon, and just hadn't been aware at that point how sort of prolific plastic is in the sea. This was all prior to Blue Planet 2, and I had only really realised, I only knew about the Great Pacific Garbage Patch and all these kind of concepts that seemed very far away, and hadn't noticed really how much was in our lives and also on our beaches. So once I had my awakening and, had a day after a storm where I walked to the beach expecting a really lovely walk and saw a horrible mess, all tangled up in seaweed that was impossible to clean up, I just felt like I wanted to do something about it. It was like a compulsion that I wanted to find out how we could help by using less plastic and not contributing to the problem any more than we had to, but also share what I was finding out as a novice with other people, because I was aware, that a lot of us were just mindlessly using this material without thinking through the consequences of where it was going to end up. So it started as a side project to sort of really share and use my marketing skills to hopefully inspire other people to take action as well. And it snowballed from there because we, I'll talk about it a bit more, but we got lots of people following us on social media, and we had a platform and an audience to speak to. So that became an opportunity.
Yeah.
So I decided to do it full time, which is great because it's really a passion that's
absolutely
driving me and want to make a difference to it.
No, that's brilliant. And it's interesting how many people who I've had the pleasure of interviewing have made that move. Not all from London, but certainly a number of them have, because they just want to they're lucky enough to be able to do that and move quite often with young family to this part of the world, because it is so beautiful. And then, as you say, that kind of shock, I think it's really interesting how no matter how many times you can hear something or even to a degree see something reported, it goes nowhere as far as taking a walk on the beach and just seeing it.
Yeah.
I mean, it is absolutely prolific, horrific, and it does make you think. And not thinking isn't a crime. That sort of, I like that word you use, that sort of mindless use. It's not that we're careless. It's actually a sort of stage back from that. It's like we're just aware. We don't have the awareness, and
we're preoccupied with so many things.
Yeah.
It's hard to always think of, the impact of what we're doing.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
And I mean, actually, as a sort of add-on, literally, I think it's 3 weeks ago, we had another kind of different sort of awakening where, obviously in my line of work, I see lots of images online of animals tangled in plastic,
Yes.
and I see lots of statistics about what we're doing and the impact it's happening on marine wildlife. But 3 weeks ago, walking on a local beach, we actually found a seal pup with fishing line around its neck. And we dealt with it by calling some people we knew and a team of us were basically rescuing that pup and unwinding the fishing line and checking that it was going to be okay to be release it into the wild. And it was, for a few days, a happy moment that we were like, we've saved that pup. But unfortunately, it was then found washed up in the beach a few days later. And that was just another moment of really connecting with a real wild animal in front of me that was suffering due to our plastic misuse. And it was very emotional at the time, and I was obviously devastated when I heard it hadn't survived. And like you say, there's nothing that beats seeing that face to face, however much we can kind of try and feel that we should be behaving differently from what we read when we read statistics or watch films, but actually seeing it face to face is a whole nother level.
Absolutely. So great. Well, that's a fantastic understanding of how you sort of got to the less plastic idea, and I think you got as far as saying that it sort of snowballed and started to take on its own life. So you've got the ingredients there, you've got your own marketing experience and communication skills, a sort of a lovely place in the world to be, and this sort of passion to do something about the pollution. So what happened? How does tell us what Less Plastic does in terms of its products and its services, and how you kind of came to develop those ideas?
Yeah, so really we have a mission, which is to see less plastic on our planet, and we are a non-profit, so we have that as a public mission. And then also to try and sort of evolve that forward as well, we also want to try and repair some of the damage already done. So less plastic is our primary goal, but a new one that we're adding on is more nature and trying to restore nature. And we do this through a number of activities. So we run campaigns for individuals and organisations, raising awareness of the issues of plastic pollution and also nature depletion, and trying to inspire people to make simple, practical changes that will make a difference, reducing waste or restoring nature. We also work with businesses to help them reduce their plastic use in their supply chains, in their offices, in their processes. So I wrote a book last year called Plastic Game Changer, which is for businesses, and that has a process and a system to take them through through what they need to do to reduce plastic in their business. And also I have 5 case studies in it, sharing best practice and insights from organisations that have already done it. And that includes people like Sky, who are leading the way in this, and Surf Dome, who are a Devon-based fashion retailer, online fashion retailer. And also there's a school in there, Boston Tea Party Cafes, who were the first coffee chain to ban disposable coffee cups, and also Iceland Foods, who were leading the way in terms of supermarkets. So we help businesses, and we do that with either people can just read the book, or they can invite me in to do a talk or a workshop. I can also do like audits, plastic audits, and consultancy recommendations, help them implement their action plans. Depends on how much involvement they need from us.
Sure.
And then we also work with businesses in another way, because we've got a large consumer following on social media, and because we're a non-profit trying to fulfill an environmental mission, businesses who want to support our work and to help us achieve that, and also benefit from being associated with us, can donate to our cause and have a logo proudly supporting less plastic, and we're part of 1% for the planet as well, so it can count as part of those contributions, and it's really useful for them from a marketing point of view, and also a corporate social responsibility perspective. And it helps us spread our less plastic, more nature messages further as well.
Okay, so let me just unpack that a bit. So, as an individual, so I mean, by definition, I guess that could be me, couldn't it?
Yes.
So I could contact you. So let's sort of go through that scenario, if you like. So every week or every 2 weeks, we recycle, which is great. So we put all of our organic waste on the compost. That's great. Cardboard and plastic and so on, we try and sort out. But I know in my heart of hearts that, I could probably be doing more. So it's good that I'm doing what I'm doing, but I could be doing. So if I said to you, what kind of approach would you take for an individual like me?
Yes. So usually individuals would come along to one of our talks. For example, we often do talks like in the community, at schools, or like at events, but sometimes individuals do get in touch with us via email.
I see.
Or they would look at our campaigns for inspiration. So we do have the very initial first infographic that we designed is called 9 Tips for Living with Less Plastic, and it's very simple, but not everyone is doing all those things.
Okay.
So that's usually our sort of first contact with people if they want to know what they can do, and it takes them through most of the ideas are things that especially if you're having food and drink on the go, that's often where there's a lot of plastic waste, and then we go to sort of deeper levels, how you can reduce plastic. If you go traveling, we've got 9 ways to travel with less plastic, or if you're going to a festival, or there's more tips for living with less plastic, and we do them in lots of languages as well.
Okay. So it's not complicated because it doesn't need to be, does it?
Exactly.
That's the thing. But what you're doing then is you're providing people with easily accessible, understandable, digestible, practical advice on things they may or may not have thought about.
Yeah, and sometimes it's a reminder of things they already know, but it's in a very visual way.
Right.
Our infographics are, by their nature, it's a visual design, and then it's fewer words.
Yeah.
But then they can read the whole blog post, which has more detail. Okay. And then another thing we have for individuals is a shopping guide where so we don't necessarily advocate just buying things when you don't need it. That's not very environmental, but where there's certain things that you would be buying regularly anyway, such as toothbrushes, toothpaste, deodorant, all those kind of essentials. We then say ones that we've found that help us reduce plastic waste that we advocate. And often those people have supported us and made a donation to appear on our list, but not all of them. I wanted to include things that I genuinely use and think are good products. So
that's good, isn't it? So that's effectively a sort of consumer useful shortcut into buying something, like a everyday thing, like a toothbrush, or I'm sure there's lots of other products. But what you're saying is that you can help people to identify where they can. Because it's all about time, isn't it? It's about saving people time and making it easy. And
money sometimes, because you may experiment with different brands and before you find one that you like. And obviously everyone's different. You might not like our one as much as we like it, but it's a good starting point for people. We do the shopping guide, and we also at New Year launched something called the Less Plastic Pledge, which is an opportunity either as an individual or in fact in your business or school to pick 3 things that you will do and commit to. And, some people make it quite simple things like I will not buy another plastic bottle again. But some people maybe have gone on to bigger things, like I will start a plastic reduction project in my business, or I will read the Plastic Game Changer book, So there's levels for people, but we've found, it's proven that people who make a pledge are accountable to themselves
Yeah, sure.
and to other people. And if they've emailed that pledge to us,
They feel.
yeah, it's obviously we're not going to be following up with people in that way, but it's kind of your subconscious then works, and you, because you have said you're going to do something, you feel uncomfortable if you don't live up to that.
I get that. You sort of made a mark, haven't you?
Yeah,
And
so you're
don't
more
wanna go
likely
back.
to have success if you filled in a pledge.
And for a business, then, is it a similar kind of offer, but just at a sort of business level, a sort of corporate level? So you're helping the whole community within that business to change their perception, change their behaviour.
Yeah, with the business talks, usually, I talk about plastic pollution a bit at the start with some facts that maybe they wouldn't necessarily have known about, to do with microplastics and health and sort of the urgency of why we need to act to tackle plastic. And then I talk first of all about what we can do as individuals and the power of individual action, and how important it is, because sometimes people think I'm only one person. Does that make a difference? But I really like to reassure people that it does, because really does, people, people see and notice what you're doing, and that has a ripple effect. And also your own actions over a year, if it's a daily habit, really would add up if you change that habit.
I mean, the opposite's true, isn't it? I mean, all the bottles that are on the beaches are through individuals who have bought a drink or whatever.
Exactly.
So.
And, even if you feel you're alone, you're not. There are a lot of people that are very passionate about this issue and doing what they can.
Right.
And also it's to try and, I called the company Less Plastic because it's to try and make it achievable. I mean, I love following zero waste pages, and, that is what I would aspire to be. But at the moment, it's very, very difficult to be totally zero waste.
Yes.
But I don't think that should stop people from trying. And if there's a few things they can do to reduce plastic, that still is very relevant and worthwhile. And then once they've mastered those things, try and step it up a level. And it's to try and encourage people that it does count. So to answer your question, from a business point of view, we talk about what individuals in the business can do, and then we go into what they can do in their professional roles, and it's about challenging the status quo and looking at your supply chain, and we get people to brainstorm sort of where the biggest sources of plastic are in their roles, and then to think about how they could maybe do things differently. And often it's actually, you don't need to replace it with something, you could just remove it altogether, and that becomes a cost, time, process saving. And one of the real benefits for businesses that decide to go down a plastic reduction project is they often save money. Not always, some plastic replacements are more expensive, but you can make savings elsewhere. For example, many of the case studies in my book have found that their employees are more engaged and feel there's more purpose to their roles if they have, as part of their job title, reducing impact and plastic footprint. So those employees are less likely to be looking for a job elsewhere. So then your recruitment costs go down. And in fact, even the head of HR for Surfdome said that he uses their plastic project to recruit. It's one of the stories, to recruit, and they get the best talent to come to the company. And then obviously there's the marketing stories and the fact that customers will be happy that you're reducing plastic waste. And the opposite is also true. If you're not being seen to make an effort, then that doesn't look good for you either.
No, absolutely. There's a lot to think about there. I can see from a business point of view, again, it's kind of, on the face of it, you might think, oh, well, a business could just do that on its own. But actually they don't, because they're too busy worrying about their customers and their staff and their products and their services and the competition and, their tax bill and a million other things.
Yeah.
So what you're doing is you're basically giving them, you're providing access to a plan which doesn't take up their headspace.
Exactly. And, they don't need to become experts in plastic pollution and statistics. And then another thing that we offer businesses is a way of promoting their successes, measuring and promoting their successes.
Oh, that's good,
and again, we sort of drew inspiration from our case studies in the book. For example, Sky, they measure plastic savings they've made since launching their project in weight.
Okay.
And they're saying how many blue whales worth
Right.
of plastic is now not going to landfill. And it's incredible how much they have saved through the changes they've made. And there's lots of visual ways, Boston Tea Party cafes say how many articulated lorries worth of coffee cups haven't gone to landfill.
Sure.
Or the oceans. So, we can be creative and help people measure and portray it in a really sort of visual way. And it works on a couple of levels. A, it really helps them sort of thank their employees for all the hard work they've done in making these reductions. And it's like a celebration internally of, look what we've done.
Sure.
Then B, they can also sort of communicate to their customers and get all the sort of PR and marketing benefits of share, and stories for social media and press, like this is what we've achieved. But then also actually it's about inspiring your industry and hoping not necessarily to have a competitive edge on this, but to get other people to act too, because it's in all our interests for everyone to be doing this, because no one really wants to be finding more dead seals on beaches or whatever else it may be.
So I can see why. So I think it's clear why you do what you do. So that's that's come across. But do you ever sort of feel that you're not, failing is not the right word, but do you ever feel like, it's a bit of a slog and actually, we are, despite everything, we're talking here about nudging behaviour, changing behaviour, you're kind of pushing on an open door, but at the same time, there are these other messages coming through, which is, big brands still sell fizzy drinks.
Yeah.
Do you ever feel like you're failing?
Yeah. I totally know where you're coming from, and yes, there are moments because plastic has had, as sort of people campaigning against plastic such as myself, we've had some great successes over the last few years. It's in the news all the time. Lots of people are talking about it, lots of people care. However, plastic production figures are still going up.
Yeah, but that's the bit that I don't get, you see.
Exactly. Annually, we produce the same weight as every human alive on Earth today, and it's set to double in the next 20 years. It's rising exponentially. And there's lots of reasons for this. There's been investment in plastic factories, especially in the US, because they've got lots of shale gas, and that's what they use it for. Oil, basically big oil is thinking that plastic is its new cash cow when we stop using oil for and fossil fuels for other things. Obviously there are days that you kind of feel that you're failing when those kind of figures come to light, but you have to keep going on because I don't think that these kind of changes can happen overnight. I think you see some really positive success stories with huge organisations such as Sky, and you see more people joining them. It's going to take a while to get everyone to snowball. And even if we do fail, we have to try.
Exactly.
Because you have to have that, you can't give up. You have to feel motivated and positive to be able to cope with daily
absolutely.
life in these challenging environmental times, and the best way to do that, the best antidote to despair is action. So you feel better for at least trying, but I do believe we will turn it. It's just moments like looking at that seal and thinking there are so many more animals and creatures out there that are suffering. Moments like that do make me feel that we've all failed.
Yes. But I think we were talking before we sat down in the studio about climate change anxiety, and I think what you were saying was interesting there, which is that, and it sort of tied. You reminded me by saying that you can alleviate that anxiety by doing something positive, and that helps. But also, I think as more younger people age and go into the workplace environment and the living environment, they will carry with them, they will be sort of demanding this kind of change, I think. I mean, but I think it's, we're in that twilight zone. So it's difficult to know, isn't it?
I know. Also, there is like the need for us to change. It's a bit like we are going to have to evolve and adapt to the point that we are living on a finite planet with finite resources. We can't continue with a linear economy. So even if people don't care about it from the sort of environmental perspective and doing what I would say is the right thing, that at some point they are going to have to change, and it's the clever people that notice this need to change will be drawing, I'm not saying that other people aren't clever, but some people have foresight and strategy and sort of see the need to do it, and they will bring other people along. So we all have like different roles to play in it, and we're maybe all doing it for different reasons, but I do feel like everyone is talking about whether it's climate, plastic, biodiversity loss, that all these things are coming together at the same time, and people are recognising that action has to happen, whether it's for the right reasons or for monetary reasons or whatever their reasons, running out of resources to keep making whatever it is they're making. We are going to have to change.
Yeah, the conversations that are happening now are not the conversations that were happening 25 years ago. And I guess the conversations in 25 years' time won't be the same as the ones that are happening today. So very, it's interesting, isn't it? So so who's in the business? Who does what in Less Plastic?
So we are a tiny business, family run. So it's myself and my husband. Right. But it's also a community. So we're really lucky. We've got a large social media following, and we have, advocates that share our materials. We have people contacting us literally daily from all over the world who want to use our posters in particular, our infographics, whether that's in schools, in their businesses, in their communities, to inspire positive change. We are trying to get together funding so that we can launch a global ambassadors program, so that we can have lots of mini sort of people like us working in countries all over the world, because we've translated our infographics into lots of languages, and we want them to be able to have an impact. That's our plan. So at the moment, it's all very informal, that people get in touch. They say they love our work. They ask if they can use our materials. I had one from China just literally this last week. She's saying she's out of work because of the coronavirus, and she's working from home, and she wants to do something meaningful and wants to share my infographics on WeChat and as on a blog. And I was like, brilliant, it's great if you can use that for positive effect. So we're looking at formalising that, but it's a bit chicken and egg. We really need a sponsor so that we can create some blank infographics that then people can put in their own language. So we're just looking for the right partner right now.
So any sponsors, any businesses? So how can people find out more? So as individuals or businesses, what's the best way?
The easiest way to find out more is to look on our website, which is www.lessplastic.org.uk. And when they get there, they can easily see the campaigns that we're running. So if you're an individual or a school or a business, in fact, you can get inspiration and some quick tips on reducing plastic there. And then our products area of the website is either if you want to order our infographics or our book, or have us come in to do a talk, workshop or consultancy. We also have some T-shirts and sweatshirts and those kind of products for people that want to kind of support us, but also wear like plastic activist clothing. It's great for striking up conversation with strangers if you're doing a beach clean.
Absolutely.
So we have those on the website, and then if they want to get involved and sort of really help us further, help us sort of spread our impact and be involved in sharing that success, We have a page for individuals with some ideas of how they can help us, and it's anything from like sharing a post on social media to maybe writing a review for our book on Amazon so it reaches more people. You know, there's ideas on there for how they can help us or make a donation if they'd like to, but there's lots of non-monetary ways that they can help. And then as an organisation, we have partnership packages as well, and people can support us in that way.
I mean, I mean, I looked at your website recently to do my research, and it's very clear, very well laid out. There's masses of information there. So lessplastic.org.uk.
And actually, I had a nice story from a local primary school the other day. I helped them do a beach clean, and I'm going in to talk on Friday. And it's a year 6 teacher, and she said, "Oh, I'm using one of your blogs about when you went snorkeling in the Caribbean as a guided reading because there's some good vocabulary there for the year 6." And I was just like, "Oh, that's really nice that they're using the resource in that way." So there's lots of different, you know, but we've got facts on there about plastic pollution. So hopefully it does help teachers who want a one place to find the information. And
so 2020, we're rattling through. We're already in March.
I know, scary how quickly it goes.
So you know, what are the big ambitions for this year?
You know, we'd like to work with more businesses and have, you know, more people involved and following our 5 Ps to be a plastic game changer so that we can report back at the end of the year how many people that we've helped. But actually, one thing I'm more excited about at the moment is it's March, it's almost spring, and we're launching our More Nature campaign, which I touched on before, but it's really about trying to help to go beyond trying to do less bad, which is reducing our plastic or carbon or any kind of negative impact, and actually trying to sort of go for that more inspirational goal of doing more good. Yeah. And it's really me as a novice on this journey, because I'm not an expert by any means, but I've been doing lots of reading and sort of trying to find what we can do. Again, starting off as a family and then thinking as a business to restore nature, and then really wanting to kind of share those tips with others so that hopefully we can have lots of people dotted about all over the world doing things which will help nature. And I really feel that's like the overarching issue, that if we reconnect with nature and truly value how important it is for our actual survival, as well as our health and happiness, then we can solve so many of the problems that we're actually facing today, whether they're social problems or environmental problems. It feels like it's an overarching issue that we could focus on.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So that is, I mean, I was going to sort of say to you that, you know, how all this, taps into the bigger narratives. But I think that's what you're saying, really. I think this phrase that you used earlier, when we were having a cup of tea, actually, was that less plastic. I think I was right in saying you not termed it, but you used a phrase which was a gateway environmental issue.
Yeah. A lot of people say that plastic pollution is a gateway environmental issue in the sense that it's one of the first things when we wake up to our consumption of plastic and the problems of too much plastic around us. You know, it's very visible and it's very tangible, and it's something you can see whether you're improving on or not. You know, unlike carbon, it's a little bit harder to measure.
Yeah.
And then really once you kind of get involved in wanting to do better and reduce plastic use, it can then lead you down this path of wanting to do better and other things as well. And this is my whole, like, actually More Nature could kind of solve so many of those problems.
I think I follow I like the idea of doing sort of certainly doing less bad things but doing more good things. I think that the sort of positive side is it's always good to do more of something which is good as well as less of something that's bad.
It seems more inspiring.
But it does seem more inspiring, absolutely right. But I also think that what you said there about if people are involved and in touch with their natural surroundings more and have a better interaction and understanding, then actually a lot of these, it's not like a lot of these problems will go away. That's what I was going to say. But they won't just go away. But they will be people. If people care, then they will. They're more likely to behave in a different way.
Exactly.
It's only when people don't care that by definition they don't care. So
I know, and I find myself even, going maybe into a city where I'm not used to being because it's not where I live, and you kind of do go a little bit on autopilot, and you feel disconnected from the natural world, because you're almost like little robots going down onto the tube and doing, going about your business and being focused on the things that you have to focus on because that's the job. And I think it's quite challenging that people, whether we're on our screens or in a city, but we need to try and carve out moments in really every day to try and find some green space and to take our focus away from those screens and actually notice a beautiful flower or a bird singing, and it's good for us. And then it makes us less likely to do things that are bad for nature.
No, absolutely. Interesting. Well, Amanda, thank you very much for explaining and talking to all of us about your journey and Less Plastic and the ambitions that you've got. So I'll just start wrapping up by saying that you've been listening to Wavelength on Sound Art Radio on 102.5 FM. I'm Dave Clark. If you would like to get your business or charity, any organisation featured on this programme, just search I Am The How or Sound Art Radio and get in touch. You can listen to this programme as a podcast on Apple, Google, Spotify and many other podcast platforms. Please share and subscribe, and as I say, contact me if you'd like to appear. Don't forget, it's also a chance to support independent and small media. So, Amanda, thanks again very much for coming in.
Thanks very much for having me. It's been a real pleasure.
We'll get you back in due course and
Excellent.
see how it's all going.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, I'll see you next week.
Podcasting for brands. I am thehow.com.